I think there might have to be some fence mending, and I think Bill O'Brien is going to probably be a big part of that, instrumental in that. I mean, there's so many things now that Bill O'Brien is going to have to do, and one is to kind of recapture and regain the trust of the players, but just the fact that he is well established as an offensive play caller and offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, obviously he has the credentials, whereas the other two didn't. So, that will help. But, I mean, Mac was broken, basically, during the year. And he's going to have to repair his confidence. And I think he's going to have to kind of patch a relationship between Mac and Coach Belichick, because it seemed pretty obvious to us during the year that Coach Belichick wasn't exactly pleased with Mac and how he was handling the situation.
Yeah, that's the talk of the day here in New England. Boston Herald's Karen Guragian on Meghan and Arcan discussing this great article that, if you haven't seen it, it's almost like you missed your Sunday school lesson. Very well written. And I should say this as well. For those who are like, give me names. Clearly you've not watched mob movies, right? Like, if you want the really good information, you got to know that someone's not going to be a snitch. So she's not going to have in her article, along with Andrew Callahan in that article, saying, Chris told me that this. And people are like, oh, Chris really? No, it doesn't work that way. The way it works is you get the narrative and then you match the narrative to like what you've been getting here, like Late Night with KJ. I haven't told you that I've been running in and out of locker rooms. I'm just saying you could see the psychology of things that were playing out that I explained that you could see coming down the road without having to snitch or dry snitch or give up my sources or go and put someone into some type of witness protection program to share for a story. There are several ways to skin a cat. Stay away, animal rights lovers. It's just the saying. 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Look, inside of the article, you just heard Karen mention, Mac was broken last year. And my thing was, so what? Who cares? And in the article, it mentions that how things may have started off on the wrong foot. And this is quoting the article, seeds of dysfunction were planted in the spring and summer around the time Jones, Mac that is, told the media he would teach his new quarterback coach, Joe Judge. The first of multiple comments he made that would irk higher-ups. So if you think Bill O'Brien is the answer, yeah, that might be the football answer, but is it the player answer? This is what I've been saying. When you continue to hold Mac Jones's hand as it's been held throughout his career, remember, as I said, he beat no one for the job at Alabama. He really didn't beat Cam Newton for the job here. He didn't. And now, because it seemed like him and Joe Judge, it seems like it was him more Joe Judge than it was Patricia. And Patricia's starting to kind of, you read the article. It seems like there is kind of an empathy that you now have for Matt Patricia in all of this. And this is what isn't this not what I said last night? That all Matt Patricia did was ask what Bill Belichick asked him to do.
Exactly. He was the number one yes man for Bill Belichick.
Which you want to be when head of crew asks you to do something. You almost feel like it's an honor, especially if Bill, who has this football acumen, Bill will forget more things about what he discussed about football last week than all of us probably will ever know about the game of football combined. And Belichick is asking him to do something that he's never really done before. That's an ultimate trust exercise. And the other part of it, I believe, is sometimes, and let's just call it what it is, sports is a form of entertainment. Sometimes in entertainment, they will test you to see what you will do when adversity is put in front of you. And to an extent, seems like Mac might have failed that test, the emotional test. Remember, people were asking, How did Mac take it when he heard Bailey Zappi's name being chanted out there? Oh, it was tough. It's entertainment. Anybody can be replaced. See, the thing is, and this is what management knows, is that they're not spending $20 million a year on Mac Jones. This is not someone you're like, we're paying him $30 million. It's hard to move him. No, it's not too hard to bench him at this point and not pay out a whole lot. You, in fact, keep him on the roster and watch all of this. That's why I said the whole Bailey Zappi thing was a response from management to kind of let Mac Jones know that you can be replaced. The word dysfunction shows up a lot in this article by Karen and by Andrew Callahan. Dysfunction. A team for 22 years has operated pretty much under the same apparatus and way of just doing business. Then suddenly there's dysfunction. I find that very interesting because while all of us were, well, some of us, I wasn't really one of those because, again, I said, if Matt Patricia stuff was so bad out there, then how come the backup won 2 games with it? Like, how did that happen? And I joked about how, like, Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, like, their offenses, especially Joe Judge when he was in New York, they had the worst offense in 40 years. And the team's 40 years, but the Giants team in the early 80s, those were horrible. They were so bad, that's why they invented the kneel down, the quarterback kneel, because of the Giants' ineptness 40 years ago. And so it's a great art. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to sit here and read a book report. But I did want to get to the point of that, look, I've said that there has been kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe the word is expectedness or unearned. I can't think of it. If I was on a game show, you would have heard a buzzer by now. But just kind of this inheritance that Mac Jones has had. Inheritance. In a league where you have to earn your keep. Some of us let that narrative go to your head. Mac Jones is an all-pro quarterback. That running game and that defense is the reason why. Because if he was an all-pro quarterback, he would have been throwing in that first Buffalo game in the wing. And they still won without throwing the ball. And then the regression started to happen towards the end of the season. But people were so concentrated on, like, he could be the rookie, he could be the offensive rookie of the year. It looked like it was going that way. Then getting caught up with him doing the gritty at the Pro Bowl on a play that was blown dead. Just small things you notice. He can't have fun. He can't do these things. And my argument at the time was, show that you can win a game with your arm. Show that you can pull this team back down from 13 and win it by 2 or win it by 1, whatever you need to. Show those things before showing off. Defense was more lights out, I would think, per capita this year, even though statistically they weren't better than the year before. But per capita, you can tell, you can name at least 3 times when the defense saved the Patriots in games this year. 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Here's Tommy Curran about something I was saying about Belichick last year while the season was happening. Here it is.
I don't think that there was any other levers to pull or buttons to push. There was nothing you could do. Once you spent the entire offseason implementing a new offense with a new language with people who had never really even taught offense before, and they were so far behind in their installation, as was well articulated too in the story, they were so far behind that they weren't even getting to things. And Bill Belichick was telling us, might take weeks, might take months, never know. They were telling us during the end of training camp that this is going to take a long time. There was nowhere to pivot, Mego. There was nothing else they could do except wait until the end of the season, hope it gets better here and there, catch a break, have Marcus Jones return a kick, have Kyle Duggar score a touchdown or 2, and maybe we get in the playoffs. You never know. But I think that probably by midseason or towards the end of the season, it's like, well, we can't do this again. This was a mistake. Hopefully we can get Billy O, which is, again, they didn't bring anybody else in other than Billy O, who would conceivably be the repairman for the offense. So you start to wonder, and I was speaking to Julian Edelman's dad, Frank, today, who he is a card-carrying Bill guy, and we still talk all the time. I think it was Billy O all the time, and he knew he was going to get him. So they just kind of mailed it in on the year. Not mailed it in, but, and I still look at that and I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, that's an interesting flex there. I know Jesus' father, Joseph, and I, man, we used to do a lot of carpentry work together. Yeah. Look, there's no shame on the show. But what I was saying last year was, as soon as there were signs as issues with the offense, Belichick should have broken glass in case of emergency and pulled out the book that was on file, the Josh McDaniels playbook that everybody else would know, and quietly oversee the offensive game planning. Take the hits, but remove it from their hands before it got out of hand. And you probably heard Belichick say in his postgame at the end of the season saying, the team was always around 500, so there really wasn't any opportunities to make changes. Of course there is. The great teams make changes even when you're pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Well, we're pretty good and we'll get there.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit past the halfway mark. I forget which week it was that he was saying, it's just too late. But it's like, we both agreed the week after, if it's not now, when is he going to change it?
So the other side to that is, remember when the conversation was, well, gosh, they're not calling the same place for Mac that they're calling for Bailey Zappi, and that's why Bailey Zappi looks so good. And I said, when Mac comes back, it doesn't matter if he throws 3 picks in a game, throws for 40 yards in a game. They're not going to pull him again after what happened in that Bears game because they would have made their statement. And that's where you would say Mac would have really been broken, because at what point in Mac's career ever has he been benched? This could be the first time Mac Jones has ever, that game was the first game he's ever been benched, and everybody's talking about how to hold his hand and play a bunch of Hootie and the Blowfish songs. This is football. This isn't the dating game. And if you think that Bill O'Brien is suddenly going to, kind of mash your medicine for you, you don't have to swallow the whole pill. I'll crush it up for you. Would you like it in your food? No. This is where Belichick is brilliant. Of course you don't bring in some new jack. Yeah, you would like to see that in the growth of the team, but you're like, oh no, this is the culture. And we got Bailey Zappi, that dude sitting right over here, who's ready to play ball. Not making a fuss. There's no leaks coming from him. He's saying all the right things. It's going to be a very interesting camp. That is for sure.